Yeah. So partnering with clients in a thought-provoking and creating process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. It's the ICF definition. So rewording it, it's you're providing a grace space for clients to explore and discover who they are in Christ, direction and purpose for their lives in Christ, a relationship that inspires clients to be all that God created them to be. So that grace space, what is that grace space? What does that mean? What does that mean for you? What image comes up in your mind when we talk about giving clients grace space to discover who they are? Joey?
I think that creating that safe space and being sure that you're completely non-judgmental, because people come to where they are. You know, we're all sinners. We've all missed it. And giving that person that safe space to perhaps look at things in their lives that aren't great. Not that you're like counseling them and stuff in that way, but yeah, that they feel safe to share. Because then they also feel safe to just open up to what the Holy Spirit might show them about themselves. That's positive. That can help them move forward.
Good. Yeah. Thank you. I think that's key, what you said, being non-judgmental, and it's being aware. We have to be very aware of ourselves in a coaching relationship, because things that people say, they may say something and there's automatic reaction. We have an automatic emotion react. We are emotional beings, and every person that we come into contact and everything they say gets an emotional reaction from us. And we have to be aware of how our body language and our facial expressions and how we respond to things that clients say, because a facial reaction, it could be a frown, or it could be a eyes opening, you know, like or some kind of facial reaction will evoke something in the coachee. And it could be that facial expression that you give as a coach could be the same. They could attach that to a rejection in the past, or like, for example, the lady that I was just sharing about, that criticism from the mother, something that I could have, a body language or response that I could have could have possibly related to how her mother had treated her, and then immediately she could have closed up. So it's providing a grace space, a safe space, a grace space, to be very aware of our reactions and our judgment, our unconscious or unconscious bias. We have to be so aware of the things that we're not even conscious of. We must become conscious of them, of how we react to people, certain people, of how we react to certain things that they say, because that also gets an emotional reaction in our client. But also asking the difficult questions. If we look at the Bible and the questions that are asked in the Bible, like even from the beginning, we can see, like in Genesis, God asked, "Where are you?" He knew where Adam and Eve were. Where are you? But he asked, "Where are you?" Difficult questions. Then he asked Cain, the situation with Cain and Abel. He asked the difficult, where's your brother? what have you done? God knew all the answers, but he was asking the difficult questions to bring about honest answers and evoke awareness. So sometimes the questions that we ask, the powerful questions, are also difficult questions. What's stopping you? Why are you? What's making you stuck? Asking and then providing the grace space for them to give the answers. And using silence as well. Silence can be very powerful, and that was the other thing last week in the coach training that I did all week. Was the participants that were in the room were very uncomfortable with the silence that there was between myself and the trainer that I was coaching. There was long gaps of silence, and I could see I was aware, excuse me, I was aware of the fact that they were starting to shift in their seats because they were uncomfortable with the silence between us. But it's how to use that silence, because that's those silent spaces are grace spaces. To not rush the client, not rush the coachee, because they are thinking, they're responding to your question, and they're thinking and they're digging. And that's when the awareness happens. Okay, so just to summarize, Gerda, can you just read down through these things that we have? This is basically what we've been talking about. That a critical coaching conversation, therefore, can you read down through these points?
Okay, so the critical conversation can evoke an emotional response, can open up a new perspective, can create hope that equals energy, can empower self-efficacy, I can bring clarity, can reframe situations, can surface underlying assumptions, can help identify root issues, can provide a clear way forward.
Mm-hmm. So can you see can you see how we have talked about all of this? Yeah. Okay. Where are we? I think what we can do now is let's take a break. We can go get a fresh cup of coffee, use the bathroom, and then when we come back, we will have a practice session using, when we come back, we'll talk about this scenario. So I've got a scenario here. I will read this to you first so you can be thinking about it during your coffee break. So this is a client. Let's say Jane is your client, and she has come to the session saying that she struggles with procrastination and poor time management. Then she goes on to express how her daily life is chaotic with a full-time job, trying to finish her master's. She puts her hand on her head and says she feels overwhelmed with the workload and sometimes is afraid of not doing a task perfectly. So she just avoids starting it altogether. When she gets stressed, she turns to social media or other distractions as a way to escape. What do you do as her coach? So what I want you to think about is what are the key directions here? What are the things you're looking for? What are the things you want to pick up on? What are the how do you say the carrots that this coach is dangling in front of you? What are you going to take hold of and follow? And what would be your first response to this, to the client? What would you say first of all to her? Neil, anything else you want to add to that? What they should be thinking about?
Nope. Coffee.
No, coffee. Okay. Yes, Gerda?
I would just like to go back to the previous slide, if you don't mind. I just want to finish writing it down.
Okay.
If that's okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Heather, how long did you say we're taking that short
Oh,
break?
okay. I didn't say. Let's say till 10:40.
Okay, so 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Firstly, let me declare to you that this is almost 90% of the problem I had with the coachee in my early days a couple of weeks ago. I kept on asking some questions that led me to deep dive. And as I deep dive, spending a lot of time in trying to understand her code, it turned out that she fails to prioritize.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we were clear about that, then everything just followed through.
Mm-hmm.
So as I say, I've come across this almost 90% of the scenario, but as I started asking those solution generating questions, it all converged to the point that she was failing to prioritize and stick to what she has prioritized.
Okay. What are the key things that you would pick up on from this scenario? What are the
Sorry, your question again is?
What are the key things that you need to pick up on from this?
Well, look, she's got a number of balls in the air.
Yes.
Yes.
She's throwing out a number of things.
Yes.
So what's one of the things that you need? Where do you need to start?
Well, is to focus on one main issue that she needs to deal with. Yeah, that's basically what I did at the time. I mean, I think I can. That's why I say I can sit here. You need to focus on one. Say, what is one thing that you want us to deal with? I can see that you're raising a number of things which are important. What is the most important one that you would want us to focus on here today?
Good. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think Neil mentioned earlier on about FIRE. It's another tool or another model for coaching, and the F of FIRE stands for focus. So the most important thing is focus. Neil, do you want to come in here with that?
Yeah. Okay, so I can see Jane has brought in a bunch of things. So the first thing I would want to know is, Actually, if somebody brought that in, I feel overwhelmed and think, whoa, where do we go with this? And so I would ask the client, where do we go with this? Is the client session? So I would ask the F of fire. So out of these things that you've just shared, where would you like to focus our attention in the session today? And see what the client says. So it's a question of focus here, because she's got to focus on a number of things: struggling with procrastination, poor time management, chaotic full-time job, doing a master's, feeling overwhelmed, workload, perfectionism, avoiding, feeling stressed, doing other things, being distracted by other things, escaping. I mean, there's so many key things that she said here. The temptation for a coach, I think, would be to run away with this and take this as the topic and say, oh, well, tell me more about your procrastination, or tell me more about this, and jump from the G straight into the R. And we haven't finished with the G yet. We do not know what the client goal or focus is in all this that they've shared. So I want to hone this down to something doable within the session that we have today. And we're not going to cure this whole thing I mean, she's not going to deal with the whole thing. So what is the issue that you want to focus on in the session today? And if they still talk around this and say, what is the one thing that we can focus on today, which will move you forward? Focus, 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 focus. Following on, do you want me to go with the I and the R as well? I could go with the I and the R as well. So that's the focus, F for focus. I always ask my clients, I send them an email. They get an automatic email when they sign up with me. What would you like to focus on in the session? What are you thinking about? I do not want clients to come into my sessions saying, well, I haven't really had time to think about it very much, because that is so non-committal that nothing is going to change if nothing is relevant and they haven't had the time to think about it. So if that happens at the beginning of a coaching engagement, I would suggest then sitting down and having a chat about what you want to achieve over a period of time, and what are some of the things that can come up as topics, and kind of brainstorm a few topics so that they're not left in the lurch, but they have to come in with the topic. And then the second question I ask them, and they're primed with this before the session, is what makes this important? What makes this important? What makes this important today? Why not something else? And I had a client once who came in and I asked the question, so what makes this topic important for us to work on today? And they thought about that and they said, actually, it's not. I said, okay, so what do you want to do with that? I want to change my focus. There's no point if it's not important. If it's not important, there will be no change. So what is important here? What is important here? And it's for the client to pick out what is the important part of this. So why this today? Why not something else? And then R, result. What would you like to achieve in the time that we have together today? What do you need to walk away with? What needs to change? Where do you need to see forward movement? So F, focus, I, importance, R, result. Help the client to figure that out. What would look different by the time we finished? In what way will you be thinking in different ways than you're thinking at the moment? What will change in your actions over the next week or the next weeks? And then E is the evaluation. So in the evaluation, I ask the evaluation question more towards the end when I'm asking, coming back to the client and saying, so of your topic that you brought for us to work on today, which was, and either I repeat it or I ask them to repeat it, how are we progressing towards where you said you wanted to get to in the session today? Are we progressing as you want to progress? This is partnering with a client, asking the client, are we progressing the way that you want to? Sometimes I may ask to evaluate the session from 1 to 10, but I'm not asking them to evaluate the session. I don't say, how would you evaluate the session from 1 to 10? I'd say, okay, so looking at what you said you wanted to take away and what you seem to be taking away, or what you've said you're taking away, on a scale of 1 to 10, how far have you come towards achieving what you set out to achieve for the session today? And it's you set out for the session today. You achieve for the session today, not me as a coach. I'm not looking for niceties, you know, kind of encouragement. I'm looking for them to realize that they've been working, not me. So FIRE. I've had a few people say, oh, but it seems so fake. And just get over it. Just do it.
Neil, may I interject, please? What is I standing for?
Importance. Importance.
Lovely.
So F, focus. What is it you want to focus the session on today? I, what makes that important for you? R, what results you need to take away from the session today? What do you need to achieve? There are different ways of asking these questions. And E, evaluation. How far have you come towards achieving what it was you said you wanted to achieve, what you set out to achieve for the session today? And all of these, particularly the FIR at the beginning, is part of the goal. The evaluation is the evaluation of the goal coming on towards the end. So it's all about the goal. So G for goal isn't the first thing that they come up with. So Jane has said all of these things. That's the first thing that she comes up with. This is her goal. No, this is not her goal. She hasn't articulated her goal yet. So it's still going to spend some time figuring out, what is your goal, Jane? What is it out of this? What are you saying? What do you need to work on? What is the important bit that you need to pick on today for us to work through? Try it out. Try this out, okay? I had somebody just this last week and they didn't do it. And I asked them why they didn't do it. I said, why don't you use fire? I said, yeah, I don't know, because sometimes it seems so fake. So I did a session with the person and I used fire. And then I asked him, how fake did it seem to you? And he said, not at all. And he knew what I was doing. He knew what he knew exactly the steps I was taking. And he said, it didn't at all. It just made sense. So don't try to be, create something all different. Just get used to using fire, and then it'll become something which is just natural to you and helps you to figure out, have I dealt with the G? Have I, which in ICF core competencies is establishing the agreement. Have we established the agreement? What it is that we're going to do in the coaching session today? Have we established the agreement for the session? So the G is a lot deeper than just first thing off the top of the head. Heather.
Okay. So then if Jane then goes after asking, okay, right, you're throwing out a lot of balls. What do you want to focus on? If Jane isn't sure, if she's so kind of like muddled in all that's going on and she's not sure, what can you pick up on? What are some of the clues that you could maybe help Jane establish where she wants to go? What do you think?
Look, let me give it a try again, colleagues. I'm going to expose myself. I'll then ask James that I'm clear of the kind of balls that you have got to catch right now, but which one amongst these four keep you awake at night? And why? And from there, I think I'll then establish the one, because I think even in her mind, then it should be clear that this is what I need to deal with. I found that again, maybe that kind of a question comes closer to what we spoke about, that what do you call it? That question where you ask that generative question, Now, which one amongst these issues that you've raised really keep you awake at night? And how do you get to that point? And then I think if she's awake, if they're paying attention, then be able to realize that this is the one that I need to do, and then you start converging from there. Thanks.
Okay. Gerda, what do you think?
I just want to reflect a little bit on the word overwhelmed. She mentions that I feel overwhelmed. She even has a physical reaction. And in my experience, when people are feeling overwhelmed, and they can actually say that, they really can't think straight. So it would be very, very hard. It might even make them feel more overwhelmed if you fire away with questions, or even if you do it gently. That's the point. They are feeling overwhelmed. So there's a lot of things happening in their bodies, probably, and in their mind. They cannot think straight. So it is hard to know. And I don't know, as a coach, really, how you can pinpoint or deal with the feeling of overwhelm. I would like to hear some responses to that.
I can't remember. Have we done the feelings wheel with you? We did the feelings wheel, didn't we?
Yes, we did it.
Yes. Okay. So this could be a place where the feelings wheel could come in. You could say overwhelmed. You say, okay, you're not sure where you want to go, what you want to do. So let's pick up on, you can give feedback. So this is a good time to, okay, right at the beginning, this is what you're telling me, Jane. This is what I'm hearing. And as you were telling me this, you put your hand on your head. And said you're overwhelmed. So let's what is really overwhelmed? What does it feel like? What is it? Because that's obviously the big thing. That's the big ball, the big nut. The hand on the head and overwhelmed. So that will help her bring down to what it is that's really making her feel overwhelmed. So that can help her bring down to a specific goal. What is it really that's making me feel overwhelmed? Is it really the workload? Or is it the masters? Or what is it? And then go move forward. Yes, Joey?
Would it be useful to ask her to focus on that feeling of overwhelmed and do a bit of a brain dump? Like, what's going on? Just list all of the things that contribute to feeling overwhelmed. Is that useful? Yeah. Because then I'm just thinking then she has an opportunity to go, oh, I feel overwhelmed about, it's the work and the masters. And then maybe there are things she hasn't mentioned yet. Relationships, illness, a whole lot of things. And then could one ask, which of these would you say is the most overwhelming, or I don't know how to say it, the one that's keeping you awake at night, as Pat said. It's just something to focus on.
Yeah.
To help her find something to
help her find
a step.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's digging deeper. So you're digging the soil. Going back to the garden illustration, you're digging a bit deeper to really get to the root of the problem. Okay.
Maybe if I could interject, with all due respect, I'm trying to say to myself, how do I then maintain the balance? in terms of digging deeper and then extending the time over to probably 45 to an hour and beyond, because you're digging deeper. At what stage do you draw the line in the sand and say, I am comfortable here, then I can try and facilitate for the further movement before you start digging deeper too much? Can I get some guidance on this?
Okay, Neil, do you want to come in there?
You repeat the question? Pat, do you want to repeat that? I was distracted.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine. No, I'm basically building on what my colleagues have said, that you do a little bit of some deep dive, okay? But my fear, where I need some guidance, is that when you do some deep dive for a person like this, they can give you more and more and more, and then time goes, and before you know it, you are now at 45 minutes to an hour, 1 hour, 10 minutes. So I'm asking, simply looking for some guidance to say, at what stage do you draw the line in the sand and say, from here, I stop the deep diving, because otherwise I'm going to be getting some recurring stuff and start focusing a person in the way forward.
Yeah. I will put that together with situations where your client is talking, and seem to not be getting anywhere, not giving you a chance to ask a question or jump in even. So that can happen as well, which will eat up all your time. I think one of the tricks that I use, and again, I just did this 2 days ago. I could have gone down a lot of roads, and I debriefed because it was a coaching, somebody who's learning to coach, like you guys. And so I coached him, and then we debriefed what we'd done in the coaching session. And we looked at some of the roads we could have gone down, but didn't, because it would have taken the time. So there are options to not go down every road. So being aware of where you are in, which is why we talk about the grow model, in the reality. You've talked about a few things. The reality is talking about what's going on. It's talking about how it makes you feel. If you've identified that there's ways of thinking or believing about something. So you're asking questions about those. And then you get to a point, you could continue. And then I generally get to a point and say, okay, so what's starting to come together for you now? And in terms of what you said you want to achieve in the session today. So looking at our goal, looking at your focus, looking at what you wanted to walk away with in the session today, what we've just been exploring, what's coming together for you that will move you forward towards that goal that you brought to the session today. Otherwise, we're losing focus from the goal. So we refer back to the goal. Okay. If a client has said a lot of stuff, I say, okay, out of what you've just shared, what is relevant to the goal that you brought to the session today and what you said you wanted to achieve? So it cuts through all the superfluous and it makes them focus down into something much more doable and understandable. And then repeat back what they say to you. So if they are able to reduce what it is that they said or pick what's relevant, and then we reflect that back to them and say something like, okay, so if I heard you, what you picked up is this and this and this and this is something that will move you towards your goal that you set out to achieve today. And they say, yes, that's exactly it. Or they might say, well, it's not exactly it. But by giving our client the chance to hear what they've just said, because they don't hear what they've just said. I had a client who, this part became a little bit frustrating because she wanted to talk through a whole bunch of things. And I said, can you whittle down in one sentence how that fits where it is you want to go in the session today? So maintaining the agreement all the way through the conversation is your anchor point that will allow you to not go too far away or your client to go too far away. Because then that will move then into the options. So if what's coming clear to you, what's that telling you that you might need to do in relation to what you set out at the beginning of the session to achieve? So that's your anchor point that will bring you back in, that will stop you going too far away, refocus back to where it is that we're going. May seem abrupt sometimes, but you're keeping things on track. Is that helpful?
It is quite helpful. And I struggled when I had this kind of a person, whether I should repeat back, and you've really helped me. It's quite a breakthrough for me that repeating back is part of the process, because I was scared. And I'm sure if you could look at my video, you'd pick up that I did repeat, but I was not sure that I'm doing the right thing. So thank you so much.
Yeah. If you look at the core, always go back to the core competencies, the ICF core competencies, which you all have access to. And the core competency will say that one of the things that you do, which shows listening and presence, is by summarizing or paraphrasing what your client has said. And the reason you're doing it is not for yourself. Like, if I find that I'm completely confused by my client, I have no clue where they are, I will ask them to paraphrase themselves. Because I'm thinking, if I'm stuck, if I'm lost, if I don't understand, how much do they actually understand about what it is that they're saying? So by getting them to repeat it back in a shorter way, it can help them to really hear. It's the curiosity of the client, of the coach, sorry, the curiosity, but it's not curiosity because I want to find out more information. It's curiosity of what's going on in their mind and what can I help them to understand better by asking them the right question. And the right question might be something as simple as, when you say overwhelmed, what do you actually mean by that word? Why did you choose that word? What's the difference between stressed and overwhelmed? Brené Brown goes into the difference, quite a good difference between what it means to be stressed and what it means to be overwhelmed. You can deal with stress and you need stress, and you can deal with stress, but when it comes to the point where you just can't cope anymore and you need to stop, that is overwhelmed. And we very often use overwhelmed instead of stressed. So we choose the wrong word. By choosing the wrong word, we've just re-explained the situation. So there's some things that you guys can watch and read up on. So one of them is Brené Brown. If you watch and read Brené Brown, Atlas of the Heart is the one that Brené Brown talks about emotions and getting into the granularity, the difference between emotions. And the other one is a South African psychologist called Susan David, and she talks about emotional agility, which is as opposed to emotional rigidity, where a person always has the same kind of emotional reactions. And so using the right words to define what your emotion is, because particularly let's hit some Americans. Americans exaggerate. Americans exaggerate. They say that things are they like to use not magnifies is the word, something like that, but words that kind of augment the meaning. And the British are the opposite. We're wimps. We just say, oh, it's a little bit chilly. It's minus 10 degrees. Oh, it's a little bit chilly today. We diminish. We use diminishing words to explain things. And so by these cultural differences can sometimes so like if a British person, they might be saying something is less important than it actually is. And so we might have to challenge them to that they're trying to diminish what it is that they're feeling. And so what would be the right word? So repeating back can be extremely important. I did the other day where I did repeat back, but I completely rephrased it in a totally different way, because I felt with my client that by rephrasing it, maybe he would hear it a different way. And if that made sense to the way that he said it, and it did. He said, yeah, that is absolutely it.
Joey, you have your hand raised, Joey.
So what do you do if your client really can't think of a goal or what to focus on?
When they come into the session and they haven't got anything.
And they haven't got, and also in the session, you ask them questions like you've just demonstrated, what do you want to focus on? And they're still just in a state of, sometimes somebody can be so at a loss that they just actually don't know where to start. What do you do?
I'm going to be really bad boy here. You need to know which clients to dump because you're not going to move forward. They're not going to move forward. They're going to get a bad impression of what coaching is. They're going to say coaching doesn't work. Whereas in fact, they haven't got anything really that significant for them to work on. And so they're half-hearted. And this can happen particularly at this phase when you're looking for volunteers and you're kind of a little bit desperate to get a few people and they're doing you a favor. So what I told the other guy who is from a previous cohort is they're not doing you a favor, you're doing them a favor, and get them to pay for it. Oh, you know, but it should be free because it's practice. I said, no, they can buy you a coffee. You're bringing in, you know, and you contract well. You say, I have expectations. If you cannot meet these expectations, then, you know, let's not do the coaching because it's not going to be any use for you. And certainly I'm not going to learn much from it. And so deciding which clients to move ahead with or not, and then talking about something, bringing in the same thing with what Pat said, when you get clients that continually go on and on and on and on around the mulberry bush and they're not getting anywhere, you might want to end a commitment with somebody that's consistently doing that and say, you know, that just frustrates me. And if I'm getting frustrated with my client, that's not positive regards, therefore maybe that's not the right client for me. So we learn which clients work and which ones don't. Open conversations with the client. So we say, I noticed that when we come into sessions, you don't have anything prepared. You can't come up with a topic. We could sit down and we could brainstorm what's going on in your life, what kind of topics we could put on the table, what might be relevant for you, and try a couple of things. But if consistently you come to a session where you're saying that you haven't had time or you haven't thought about it, then it's obviously not a priority for you and you're not going to get the full benefit from it. So let's call it a day. And you need to have the guts to do that. So I give my clients, I have a document which I do for leadership coaching, and I have a list of typical topics that might come up for people in leadership. Typical things that they might want to deal with, or they might come across that might be relevant for a conversation, just as a springboard to see, oh, I could talk about this. Oh, I could bring this in. Oh, this might be relevant. And so that can be an option, is to go through a list with them and see if the list sparks off any ideas, because they don't know how coaching works. They don't know what kind of thing would be normal. I heard somebody last week and he said, can I talk about Christian things? And the coach said, absolutely you can. And you could see the client relax into the session because they hadn't realized that they could, and the guy was in Jordan. Okay. So you can imagine there was a little bit of tension there of what he could record and what they couldn't record. That's contracting. That's at the beginning of the contract. When you sit down and you talk about what coaching looks like, these are the things you put on the table. And so you might need to say to somebody, if you constantly come in, or if you come into 2 or 3 sessions and you haven't got a topic, you have several options. One, don't do coaching. Because, you know, you can't see where it is that you need to change or what's going to be relevant for you. 2, cancel the session a few days before. If you haven't thought of anything, reschedule with me. Don't come to a session unprepared. It's taking up your time, is taking up my time, and we're not going to get anywhere. So it's going to be a waste of time for both of us. And if it continues, then we need to not coach. I had a really good friend that I coached 3 sessions. I did it in exchange for he's an engineer in Switzerland. So I asked him for a reference on LinkedIn in exchange for 3 sessions. So we did the 3 sessions. And the 3rd session, he said, oh, I haven't had time to think about anything for the session today. And I said, okay, well, since we're friends, we could spend half an hour just chatting. But I want you to go away and I want you to think of something which is relevant and something which is important to you. And I want you to come back on a future session prepared. And so we didn't do the session. But you've got to have a real good level of trust with the client to be able to do that without offending them, without that being a problem. So I did that, canceled the session with him. We just chatted for half an hour. Caught up, talked about his new baby and stuff like that. And then the next session he came in prepared. And the feedback I got from him was, that was the point where I realized that the coaching was something that was important. And it needed to be relevant. And I needed to take it seriously. And I wasn't taking it seriously. So that was an aha moment for him of realizing what coaching is for. It's not, we're not playing around. We're doing some work here. And so there are multiple ways of dealing with it, Joey, but it's very, very, very typical, particularly at the beginning. I myself contract for 3 sessions, not more. And we extend from 3 onwards if it's going well and if that makes sense to the client. So I focus for 3. I started off with 6. Actually, I started off indefinitely and some of them just fizzled out. Then I tried with 6. And then by the time we got to 5, people were not engaged. So then I whittled it down to 3. And those who are more engaged will contract another 3. Also helps for the payments because you can say, well, you pay for 3 up front. And that's usually not a huge chunk then for people to pay 3 up front. And then they can buy another 3 then if they want to. And also if I want to keep them as a client. And I want to keep them as a client. And I'll tell them I only want to keep, but I'll tell them this right at the beginning of the first conversation. I'll only keep you as a client if you've done the work in the first 3 sessions. If you really haven't worked in the first 3 sessions, then it's not going to be worth my time working with you. Because coaching isn't going to work, because you're not engaged, because you're not committed, and you will blame coaching and you will blame me, and we're not going to get anywhere. So, for your best and for my best, we won't coach beyond 3 sessions unless you do some significant work, unless it's really working. And on that, I have a client that I've been working with since 2017. That comes back, but he comes back and he knows. He comes in, he says, okay, this is what I want to work on today. This is what makes it important for me. And this is what I want to take away. So I don't even have to ask him those because he automatically comes in with those. And when he's got what he needs, he slams his notebook shut and said, I know exactly what I need. I know exactly what I've got. And I say, okay, go through it with me. And he'll go through it. And he said, brilliant, thanks, bye. He just says, send me the bill. So hopefully that's useful, Joey.
Okay, thanks. So we can fire our clients.
Yeah,
totally. That's okay. We can.
Totally. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Another way, Joey, it's one of my clients quite often doesn't have a goal, but I always say, okay, over the last couple of weeks, what's been going on? Just tell me, just update me what's happening. And then out of this updates and the last couple of weeks, quite often, most of the time, she goes, I have to deal with this. This is what I want to work on. This is what this situation happened. And I need to figure this out. I need to figure this out. So, and actually that was one of the scenarios that was in the exam, that you have a client that comes and they don't have a goal. What do you do? And there was 4 options, the multiple choice, the 4 options. And one of them was reschedule the coaching session, reschedule it. The other one was ask them, and the other situation was ask them what's been going on in the last couple of weeks. The other option was going back to the previous coaching session. What was discussed around the previous coaching session? Is there something from that you want to carry on talking about? And I can't remember what the 4th one was, but it was very hard to know which one they were looking, which answer was the correct one. But the one that wasn't correct was, and because I ran this past Neil after I sat the exam the first time and I failed it. And so I went through, I kind of did brainstorming with Neil after the exam to some of the scenarios that I wasn't very
sure about.
I wasn't sure about. Yeah. So and this was one of them. And so I asked Neil and I said, I chose reschedule the appointment. And Neil goes, no, that was the wrong one. So, and the same, I think what happens in the exam is a few new questions. The next time I sat it, there was quite a few new questions, but there was also quite a few of the questions that were same. And this was one of the scenarios that came up again in the second time I sat it. So I knew definitely I'm not going to choose that one. That was the wrong answer. So yeah. Interesting.
In your own
Okay.
practice, you might do something which the ICF would say isn't the best option.
Yeah.
If you have a client that comes and doesn't have something, then that's what you do is you look at what's going on and see if you can come up with something in the session. But if you have a client who's consistently not prepared for their session, not coming up with, don't have a goal to get to, then you might want to dump them. But hang on a second. Pat's got his hand up, had his hand up for a while.
Yes, sorry, Pat.
Yeah, no, thank you, colleagues. I'm learning a lot. Neil and everybody else, if you've got a client that you've had a session and you reach a point of convergence in terms of this is what they're going to do and then the way forward, but then they want to come back for the second session where both you and the client or the coachee, he or she wants to demonstrate how they are doing. Am I allowed to basically have that second session in terms of basically now monitoring progress?
Sure.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
I've contracted, there's a tool that I've used, Immunity to Change, which takes about an hour and a half to go through properly. So I've had sessions where a client has, at the end of it, I've asked them, I have a tool which might be useful for you. Would you like to book a second session, another session, which we would just go through that tool? That would be the agenda. We would just go through the tool. And they say, oh, sure. Yeah. Brilliant. I had a client recently, and that was a turning point for her. That session stuck out in her mind. So you can contract a meeting, a session for something specific. I had a client that came and said, I don't have a topic today because all I want to do is to just kind of get out where I am and what I am and think about it and have you question me about it and talk around it. So that was what he wanted from the session. He didn't want any specific outcome to move forward. He just wanted to say, okay, I've started the new job. I've been at it for 3 months. This is everything that's going on. And then at the end, I would say more like, okay, out of all these things that are going on, what would you like, are there things then that you want to pick on for us to do in future sessions? Pick some of what you've just been through. And you go, oh yeah, that's useful. So yeah, absolutely. You can do that. You just don't want every session to have your client come and say, I really haven't thought about what I want to talk about today. Don't ever ask them what they want to talk about because they'll want to talk about the rugby. What do you want to focus on in our session today? What do you want to achieve? What do you want to work on? Not what you want to chat about.
It's not a chit chat.
No.
Okay, so big rocks of life. I think this is actually very key to come in, that this tool comes in here, because establishing goals, this is one of the tools that we can use to really help people establish the goals. So, like it says here, the things that most positively impact their lives tend to be complex long-term payoffs. So the big things, the big rocks of life: careers, relationships, marriage, health. And sometimes these are the things that like we were talking about life domains on Tuesday, that they're just so big that they can't cope with all of them. And this tool, did you all read through the explanation of the big box that I posted on the Google Classroom? So does it make sense to you that if you don't start with the big things, if you don't deal with the big things, you'll never get to the small things? So the whole thing about how to fill a jar, if you put the big rocks in, if you don't put the big rocks in first, they'll not fit in at all, because the jar will fill up with all the small gravel, stones, stuff. So those big things have to be dealt with first. So I have used this. I use this all the time in my coaching, because by helping people deal with the big things, the small things sort themselves out. So many people get so sidetracked and consumed with the small things, and that they never get to the big things. And so the big things never get solved, but the small things never get solved either. And it's about helping people realize that by dealing with the big rocks of life, all these other small issues kind of like, they either go away because they realize they're not that important, or they just automatically sort themselves out. So it's helping people deal with the real issues and not the insignificant issues. So this is what I want us now to do, the practice session. So I just want to ask, Mash, were you able to have a look at this? Is Mash still here?
I'm still here.
Yes, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I haven't been able to look at the documentation that you sent me.
Right, okay.
I think I'm planning on doing that today. I've got some time.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
I'll
so
just
Mash, do you want how will then, okay, so
I have an idea just from our side discussion the other day.
okay.
But I need to apply my mind and really think about it.
Okay.
And yeah.
Okay. Okay. So then what we'll do is we'll just have the rest of you, you've worked on it. Pat, Gerda, Joey, you've done the exercise, you've gone through, you have an idea. You did your homework. Yes, no.
Look, let me challenge you colleagues. As I went through this, the idea here, Neil, is that you deal with big things and get them off the way, and then the other things just probably automatically get off the way. But isn't the human being's mind is wired up such that if I can do with small things, then I'm encouraged that I can deal with bigger things?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it depends, like, especially where goal setting is concerned. It has to be measurable. I think that's, you know, for helping people set goals, they can't set a massive big goal and automatically reach it. A really big goal has to be broken down into small goals. And then as they see themselves reaching those smaller goals, they get motivated and inspired to keep going forward to finally reach the big goal. That's where goals are concerned, yes. But the big rocks of life, you can get so consumed with small issues that people just see themselves going round and round and round in circles, always with the small issues, dealing with the small issues, and never actually reaching the big main issues that are concerning them. So I want us to do the, yes, Gerda?
So I want to ask about, if I look at all the things that we've looked at, like the big rocks, the life domains, and the wheel of life.
The wheel of life.
Yeah. So in terms of the big rocks, I'm wondering about where does values fit in? And so are the big rocks connected to life domains, or is it connected to values, or is it connected to just, yeah, life domains, maybe between those two? Or could it be like you have one session where it's about values and one session where it's more about your reality and what's happening in your life?
Well, the life domains are very much impacted by values. They're connected. So in your career, what are your values? Your values are, you want to be creative. You want to be creative. Your creativity is a value. So in somebody's career, if they're not allowed to be creative, then they get frustrated and they're not fulfilled and they're not motivated, because in the career, the value is not being lived by. Or their value is in a relationship, their value is being heard. Being respected, being heard. And in that relationship, every time that person wants to share something, they're closed up, they're shut off. So that's a value in a relationship. So in every big rock of life, values come in. because values are the steering wheel. In the sailboat metaphor, values represent the steering wheel, and it's the steering wheel, the values that guide us in all of our big rocks, in all of our domains. Does that answer? Okay, so you can't separate them. But very often people don't recognize their values, so they actually don't. They have an issue in their job or their relationship or one domain of their life. They have an issue, and they don't actually recognize the fact that it's because there's a value that is being tramped upon, and that's why they have an issue, because they don't even realize that they have that as a value. So for the remaining time, we're not going to, I said we would get to the Wheel of Life, but we covered the Wheel of Life on Tuesday anyway. So we'll, I'm trying to think who would like to be coached in this with this tool. I can't remember the last time. Who observed? Pat, you observed, or did you coach? You coached.
Can't remember. I think I was a guinea pig.
Yeah, last time Pat was the coachee and I coached him. And
You coached him.
Yes.
Okay. And Gerda observed.
Yes,
Okay.
Gerda observed, yes.
Right. So this time then I would say, Gerda, if you could coach Joey, and then Pat and Mash can observe.
Okay.
Is that okay? Because Mash, you didn't get a chance to look at it, so it's fine. And then these are ideas for examples of questions that you can use. So if the big rocks, you come with your big rocks, what are the big rocks? So if you could only focus on one thing in the coming season, what would you focus your energies on? Are there current actions you have control over that you would benefit from spending less time or more time? What choices do you need to make to ensure that your priorities are included in your plan for the coming season? But you can use other questions. These are just some questions. So the rest of us, so Gerda, Gerda is coaching Joey, and the rest of us will turn our mics and our cameras off.
How much time do we have?
You have, let's say you have 30 minutes. And then we'll close up.
Okay.
Okay. We'll have a little 30 minutes, and then we'll have kind of like, are you okay to go on to the session till about 12:30? Because then we'll have some time for debrief and feedback.
No, I can handle 12:30, but not beyond 12:30. I already had prior commitments, but 12:30.
That's fine.
Yes.
Okay, cool. We will definitely be finished before 12:30. Okay, so you have until 12:05 for your session. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Welcome, Joey.
Hi, Gerda.
Good to see you again. I want to ask you about the big rocks in your life. Did you have time to look into that tool and maybe have one of them in mind that we can talk about today?
Yeah, well, when I was looking at that tool, I kind of looked at the big rocks in terms of where most of my time and energy goes. Rather than like the list there, it goes, careers, relationships, health goals, and all that. So the big rocks that are in the jar that are taking most of my time and energy are caring for my family, caring for our home, trying to figure out what I want to do about a career for myself. but I'm not getting anywhere with that in any direction with it. And then just health. Yeah, I've had a few health issues over the last year. And I needed to make some lifestyle changes and with a few things. So I'm getting there with that. So that's one of the smaller rocks, but it is still an area of focus because the lifestyle changes need to be consistent so that I can stay healthy. Yeah, so those are the things that take up most of my time and energy, but I want to shrink some of those so that I can focus on moving forward, because I feel like I spend a lot of time on those things and it's kind of a bit relentless because you never quite finish with them. You kind of never finished parenting, and you never you clean your home once and then you're going to do it again and get the same thing. So I feel I'm spending a lot of time on things that I'm not moving forward on, but they need to be done. And they're on my shoulders to do. Yeah, so I think what I want to focus on is figuring out perhaps which of those big rocks I could shrink realistically to give me more time to focus on what I can do to go forward with a career or work.
Okay. So if I hear you correctly, you have identified 4 different big rocks. One is not as big as the others, the health one. You said you're like, okay, that's not as big, but it takes time. You have identified 3 others. And the one thing that's true about all of them, but at least 3 of them, is that they are consistently there. They need to be done. And yet the other one, the one about figuring out what next in terms of your career, is the one you actually want to spend time on, but these others keep taking up time. And so now you want to see how you can reduce them a little bit, or spend less time on them, so that you can focus more on the one that you really want to focus on. And that's my next step. Did I hear you correctly?
Yes, you got it. Yeah.
Okay. So we want to focus today on there's 2 things really, right? How to shrink these others, necessary, consistent ones, and how to make more time for thinking about moving forward in terms of your career. Which one of these would you like to tackle first?
I think it's the care of the home one.
Okay.
And the actual housekeeping. That's probably the one I can most realistically shrink, because but I have to figure out what specifically, because that just feels like one giant rock with big bits coming off it to every other area. Because caring for my family, I mean, the family has needs. My kids have needs. My husband have needs. I can't cancel those needs. If they need something, I want to be there for them. That's important to me. So, if my daughter's struggling with something, I'm not going to say, no, mommy can't deal with that now, because I'm working on my career. I'm not going to do that. So the family care one is probably, that rock needs to stay the same size it is. I don't want to shrink it, because that one is very important to me, that I care for my family well. But the care of the home is a lot of, I feel, kind of relentless, mundane stuff. Mop the floor, take the bin out again. You're going to do that again tomorrow. Just put in another load of laundry, take it out, hang it on the line. It sort of needs to be done. But I've tried so many different ways of getting those things done in other ways, so that it's not necessarily my hands that need to do it all the time. But every time I make plans, they get cancelled by something or other. I think that's mostly what I get stuck on, is that I keep trying to make plans to contain the amount of time that those kind of things take in my life. But then things just happen that it still takes the same amount of time.
So the issue for you here is the time.
Sorry, what did you say?
What I'm hearing is that the time it takes.
Yes.
So not only in that it's repetitive, but also that it takes a lot of time. And even though you've made plans, it just, something always comes up, and then you're back there. You're back at, I'm doing it again, and it's taking a lot of time again. And I
Yeah.
don't want to do this
Yeah.
in this way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what feelings are bubbling up in you if you think about these tasks?
A lot of frustration and a sense of feeling a bit defeated, because it's been years now that I've been trying to make plans, and then, you know, something happens in our lives, and then those plans I've made get cancelled for whatever reason. So, so I'll give you some examples. So we used to run our business from home, and that meant we had staff in our house all the time, which helped. It was helpful and unhelpful at the same time. So there were two ladies that were working here, and they did some of the housework. So that helped a lot, because there were certain areas where the business was, and they kept those in order and cleaned up and all that. So I didn't have to do that. But then we moved the business. So then they went with the business. Okay, so then I had to fill in the things their hands used to do, then my hands had to do those. Then I've tried employing somebody. Yeah, but then various things happen, like our income goes up and down every month, because our business it's not consistent through the year. So it goes up and down. Yeah, so then if the business cash flow is tight, then we have to cut down on some of our expenses. So I've tried employing somebody, but then what tends to, I don't want to employ someone without being certain that I can pay that salary every month. So that holds me back from employing somebody to actually do that work. That's the one thing. And then my children are really great at doing chores. They're really great. But my eldest son has, and they're old enough to help, the older two, but my eldest son went off to study. So he's not at home anymore. And he used to help quite a lot. And then my second son is at a school and we were homeschooling. Then he used to help quite a bit. But just with the timing, his school is quite far from us. So it's quite a long commute there and back. And he's really in a crunch time with his academics now, and he needs to study a lot. So I don't want to use up his time when he is home by giving him chores to do. He would be very willing to do it, but I feel I don't want to. He needs to focus on his studies. And then my youngest is also at school now, and she's the youngest, so she's very helpful, but she's still not capable enough to do a lot of the bigger things. And yeah, so that's kind of, those are the circles that I keep going around in. I'm trying to figure out which avenue I can actually make a change in, that can actually, yeah.
So the picture I see is something like a roundabout in traffic. And so you are going around, and there's several exits, and you have a thinking about each one of those exits, each one of these options, and how can I solve this thing that's a problem for me? So you keep going around, and you think this one, but no, it can't work because of that. And then you think this one, no, it can't work because of that. And you think this one. And so in the end, you're going around. But what do you think? If you think about it like that, if this makes sense to you, who's in the middle of that roundabout? What's the constant here?
Yeah. I don't think I like that analogy, but I feel like I'm the car going around that roundabout, looking for the exit, and then looking, oh, is that the right road? No, that's not going to work. Let's look at the next exit. No, okay, no, that's not going to work. So I keep looking at options and then seeing, okay, no, that's not going to work. I think probably something I didn't mention that's a factor here is my management of myself, which is probably the biggest problem, is that I start feeling overwhelmed by all of these rocks, and then I feel defeated, and I feel like, too much. I don't know what to focus on, and then I waste time with stupid stuff like scrolling on my phone, or perhaps doing menial tasks that are unnecessary. So I think probably the exit that I have to look at, which is one I can control, and I have to figure out, maybe put the spotlight on that, is how I manage my prioritizing of how I spend my time.
So
and
what would
managing
help
my
you?
emotions, because if I feel overwhelmed, I do something like wash the dishes because it's easy and I don't have to think too much. But then I might spend, I might do that like unnecessarily. See what I mean? I could leave it for later and spend this half an hour reading some of the YELUSA notes or something like that. Yeah, so I'm thinking that's an exit that I should actually maybe look at more, is how I manage myself.
Prioritizing things and then trying to direct your behavior according to that, or your choices that you make according to that.
Yeah.
Is this something that you've done in the past, this idea of prioritizing and then managing yourself according to that?
Yeah, but I think I set very unrealistic goals. I set very high expectations for myself of what I can get done. And then that contributes to feeling overwhelmed about that.
And the other word you used is defeated. You used that quite a few times.
Yes, because then
setting
I feel like
too high goals, now I cannot reach that, so I feel overwhelmed, but I also feel like I failed.
Yes. Yeah. So then I get stuck in that emotional spiral of, I'm never going to get out of this. I just need to get this right.
So you mentioned that maybe the exit is to prioritize, but you've done that, and that actually also didn't help.
Yeah.
So maybe we should look at another exit, or we should look at what is this all about? Why am I going around and around and around this thing of housework, taking care of the home, feeling I'm not managing my time well?
I think as those things, some things, if you don't do them, it has a knock-on effect of making everything else complicated. Like if you don't do the laundry, then no one in the family has clothes to wear. So then, it's the morning and we're all trying to get ready for school and all that, and the kids are going, Mom, where's my uniform? And so you kind of there's some things you can't cut out. They just have to. If you don't do them, it has a knock-on effect of consuming even more time. So so there's some things you can't just say, okay, well, I'm not going to skip that. So I've got to, so I think that's what I'm struggling to figure out, is what things exactly, those definitely have to happen no matter what. But I should maybe find, but I'm actually, those important things I'm already doing them in the most time efficient way possible. Is perhaps looking at the things that aren't that urgent, but but then I know time-wise there's some things that have to get done that would help if someone else could help with that. So can you see, I start going around circle again.
So maybe it will help if we go back to what you said in the beginning, like I want to shrink some of this. I want to see if I can use less time on this thing, this caring of the house or the home. And all these tasks that need to get done. I want to shrink that. So how do you feel? Where are we in that, like, if you look at that shrinking of that list and shrinking the time, do you feel like maybe is that where we're heading?
Yeah, I know I need to shrink that time that I spend doing those things, but I don't feel like I've come up with any really workable solutions.
Mm.
And
So
also,
are we? Go ahead.
so our family life is also it's very up and down. Like we don't have and there are various reasons for that. We don't have like a consistent thing that every week, you know, everything happens exactly the same. Which I think it really does help if you can get into a routine with some things, because then, you know, they just get done and they're quicker when it's a routine, and you kind of stay on top of things. Yeah. It's like, you know, if things that I get disrupted easily by outside things in that ecosystem that Heather was referring to earlier. Like I may have planned on Tuesday morning, I am going to do 2 hours of working on something. Okay, reading. I've got Atlas of the Heart, which I'm loving, by the way, and reading that. Okay, but then the car breaks. And who's the one who has to take, you know, sort it out? And, you know, my husband would happily do that, but at the moment he's working very hard in our business, and I don't help in the business anymore. Otherwise he would definitely jump in and help, but he's actually just so tied up with the business that I'm the one with the flexible time. So, you know, so then that time I was going to spend working on my future career now gets taken up by sorting out that unforeseen thing that happened. Yeah, then I feel like I get derailed by those things, and then I struggle to come back to what was I actually focusing on.
And it sounds like the thing is there are real things that actually need to happen in a timely manner to make sure that the wheels keep turning. And then there are the disruptions, the distractions, the disturbances, the things that you can't plan for, but they actually also happen, and then they take up actual real time.
Yeah.
And you're the one navigating all of that for everybody in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
And then that definitely adds or contributes to your feeling of frustration.
Yeah, because I've had enough now. I've been doing this for 20 years.
Enough already.
I want to put some of the rocks in my life that I would like to work towards now. So yeah, that's why that's the area. Yeah. I don't know if that is the right area to focus on, but it's the one that I can see is one that can.
So if we can just, like, we have 5 minutes left, 5 or 6 minutes left.
Yeah.
For you to be able to feel like I have a little bit more clarity in how I'm going to prioritize these rocks and how I'm going to prioritize making changes in terms of the rocks. What would you like to do?
I think I think while I've been talking, actually, I should probably make a list of the time wasters, or time like where time goes where that could be changed, like things that are a bit maybe unnecessary or not that important. And then I think maybe the other thing I need to work out for myself is a strategy for coming back to what I was focusing on, wanting to focus on, if something happens that derails that. Yeah, I need a strategy that I can come back to that, because I find that's like, yeah, those external things, they happen and then I have to deal with them. But then after I've dealt with it, I feel a bit lost. Like, okay, so where should I go now? What should I deal with next? And then I waste time feeling overwhelmed and feeling like, okay, I've got a lot to do, and what's actually my goal now? So maybe I need to actually really figure out what, I don't know, maybe I should make smaller goals, have smaller expectations of what I need to do so that I don't feel so overwhelmed, and then have a bit of a strategy of what I can do to get back to focusing. Because those external things will happen. It's unrealistic for me to think they're not going to happen.
So smaller goals, what would that look like? How can we make smaller goals?
Well, I think in my mind, and maybe it's Brené Brown calls them stealth expectations. I think I'm going to I plan my week on Sunday. I plan the following week and just kind of pin down exactly what has to happen during the week. And then I have this expectation that I'm going to, in my mind, spend many hours doing this particular thing. Like I really want to read more of Brené Brown's book and the notes and go through these lovely exercises we've been getting for this course. So in my mind, I've got, I'm going to spend a lot of time doing that this week. That's probably an unrealistic expectation.
So how can that
I would actually probably get more done if I say, okay, this week I'm going to spend 2 hours doing it during the week.
Okay. Would it be helpful for you to pin down those 2 hours and say, I'm going to, identify a morning where this is going to happen? Or is it just an open-ended, I want to spend?
Yeah, so you see how this is the thing that happens. I'll go in my planning. Okay, on Tuesday morning, I'll have a gap. On Tuesday morning, I'll spend an hour, and then maybe on Wednesday morning. But then if something happens on Tuesday morning that eats up that hour, then I'm lost. Then I'm that's where I need a strategy for if that unexpected thing happens that interferes with what I plan to do. If my expectation is lower, then it's a bit easier to shift that to something else.
So what would it look like for that expectation to be lower?
Maybe expecting myself to do less hours of something. Like in my mind, I must be happy with doing like 1 or 2 hours. 1 or 2 focused hours on something is worth a lot more than 10 hours of scrambled thinking and feeling overwhelmed.
And what if those 2 hours don't have to be pinpointed to a specific day, but it could be 2 hours at this day, or maybe if that doesn't work that day, or maybe if that doesn't work, I'll have 1 hour in the evening here, or maybe, and so there's options.
Yeah, and probably it also helps if I get the things ready. So I find like the biggest part of the task is actually get the book, put it there. I should actually just get the things ready. That's the first step. So then if I get to do it at the time I've set for it, then I'll do it. But if something happens that derails that, then at least I have what I need ready. Whatever, if I need my notebook and my pen and the book that I'm going to read, or the notes that I'm going to read, then I have it ready. It's just a lot easier then to actually, okay, now I've got half an hour. I can sit down and do that straight away. That's probably what I need to do. I need to get the things ready and probably set a time and then have like a plan B time in mind. If I go, okay, if I'm going to do it on Tuesday, but if that gets derailed, my plan B time, I probably need a plan B time. Otherwise, things get lost. The to-do list, or my to-do list, things get added, and as they get added, other things fall off. Yeah. Okay, I think I'm quite keen to try that.
Okay.
Having a specific, lower my expectations and have a specific thing that I'm going to do and get the things ready, and then have a plan A time and a plan B time.
Okay. So how do you feel about that in terms of the goal that you set?
This was very useful.
Okay. So not shrinking necessarily, but just managing.
Yeah.
In a different way.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. good luck with that. I am cheering you on.
Thank you. I'm not checking the time, so I don't know if we.
I think it's 12 o'clock, 12:01 on my clock. So I think we're done.
Okay.
I don't know if we've lost our audience. Maybe they got bored.
Yeah, they're very quiet.
No,
No
we're
sign
all
of anything.
we're all still here. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Pat and Joe, or Gerda and Joey. Thank you. It was because I saw Pat's hand waving. That's why I said Pat. Yeah. So, okay. Feedback. Gerda, the coach. How was that for you? Get some reflection, self reflection. How did you feel that went? Where did you feel a bit lost? Where did you feel yourself? Where did you see it moving forward? Where did you see the aha moments?
I think I did feel a little bit distracted by all these different options that we have that we can use or apply or work towards. So I try to keep myself focused by coming back to the original idea of that she put on the table. Like, I think I need to shrink the time. So I tried that to see if we can both stay focused, although something in me actually wanted to go into a different direction. And so, so I felt a little bit of inner conflict there and finding it hard work to stay focused on, no, let's go back to what she said in the beginning. And then there's also always the other factor of following the client in the direction they're going. So it did feel to me like Joe actually wanted to go, is opening doors for something else. And I would love to explore that at some point. But yeah, so there was that. I felt, okay, I need to stay with this. I need to stay with this. I need to stay with this. And although there was something else that maybe could have been dealt with. I am, when a client says, oh, this was really helpful, and I feel I now know what I can do next, that to me is good. It feels like, okay, well, if the client is happy and they've reached something that they can go forward with, then that's good. That means the time was well spent. So in that sense, I'm happy. Yeah. It's always fun to talk to Joey. She comes up with so many things by herself. It's like you really don't have to work too hard to delve too deep. She goes there, and I like that. So yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna say.
Okay, good. Joey, how was the session for you?
I think I really felt like Hara was really listening.
Mm-hmm.
And she gave me opportunities to talk. But then she would ask questions before I ran away too much in one direction, I think, or I think I liked the questions that she asked. There's still some. So I have a lot going on in my head. It's just trying, processing that whole session and thinking, how did that go and what did I learn from? I'm trying to see it from being the coachee, but also learning from the coaching process.
Mm-hmm.
I really did like the questions that you asked. And I like that analogy that you brought up about the car going around the circle and the car.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe she could have asked a bit more about, I think I mentioned emotional overwhelm a few times.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe she could have stopped at that. I don't know what she would have done with it, but yeah, that was also quite a big factor with the time management side of things.
Mm-hmm.
was that part. So I think maybe that might have been a bit she could have stopped at, but I think she did really well. I did find it very useful, actually. I'm really going to try that this week.
Mm-hmm. Good. Okay. Okay, then, Mash and Pat, Do you want to, Pat, maybe you first give just like one aspect, if you can do it, because just I'm conscious of time and I want to also get some feedback from Neil as well. So just one, if you pick one aspect of the coaching that stood out for you.
Yeah, maybe just to say, Gerard did a pretty good job, but I also picked up at some stage that she did what I call leading questions when she said, will it help instead of what will help? You know, I picked it up. And then maybe again, just to say, what could further trip you? Because at some stage, she said, I've done a number of things. Now I'm willing to list these things and come up with a new strategy, which was quite excellent, by the way. But I felt that one question that was missing is just to say, what could further trip you in this thing that you're putting now as your new choices thinking?
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay,
Maj?
thank you. I think I'm going to be very brief. I thought great conversation. Perhaps from my side, just to say, maybe we could have had less questions, fewer questions, and maybe just delved deeper on maybe 2 or 3 key issues, as opposed to responding to the number of questions, which for me then turned out to be a bit of an overloaded conversation, if I can put it that way. So maybe just to identify 2 or 3 questions and just deal deeper on those from my side.
Okay, like what questions? What questions would have been key?
I don't think one is more important than the other. I think all questions were relevant. But I just feel like maybe maybe the conversation, depending on what the coachee felt were the most critical issues, perhaps just to focus on those 2 critical issues or 3 critical issues. I don't think one is more important than the other. So it could have been any of all of the conversation. I just felt there were a number of issues, and the time limitation did not allow for them to go through all of them.
Yeah, it's always in these sessions that we have during the training, it's always the time is always a factor, and we always feel we have to rush. There could be we could delve a lot deeper and dig a lot deeper if there was more time, but it still gives us a really good practice, still gives us real issues to deal with. And you go away with real goals. We don't want it to be just role play. We want to deal with real issues, have a real coaching session, go away with real goals, but also having learned real factors and picked up key things in the coaching session. Neil, feedback, please.
Neil, you're on mute.
Okay, he has written down here to all of us. You see the chat. He has written down some things. Do you want to just talk a little bit about those?
Is the chat?
Just read them.
I don't see it. The last thing.
If you look at the there should be a little
thing down at the bottom.
Number with the number of messages are being sent in chats.
Well,
bottom of your Zoom. Are you on a phone or are you on a computer?
No, it's on. But the last message from you says some tools like this big rock.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Is it
it's
that?
clear. It's clear.
Oh, there's nothing more after that.
No.
Sorry.
I think. Okay, it's in the recording, so I'm going to cut it out of the recording. I just forgot that it was that was still recording it, because generally, because we don't like people's topics being in the recording. I mean, happy that you're there but we don't want it to be generally available. So I will cut that out before we get to the point. But maybe what I'll do as well is I'll make a separate little video of just that. And just send it to you too. Okay, because it was both of you. So we'll send it to you two specifically that you can relook at it and go back and pick it apart. I think there was a lot of really good stuff. Coaching in front of a whole bunch of people, you know, on the spot, it's not easy. I don't like doing it. And so I think you did a great job in doing it there. And there was a lot of moments that were really just natural. Conversation was flowing. Chatting around things in terms of, I mean, I say chatting around things, it was the work, teasing out the topic. I mean, whether there are always, when you go back and look at it, you can always think of, oh, I could have gone down that road. Oh, I could have, you know, I missed that word. I could have, like I'm saying about the emotional words, I could have asked about that a little bit rather than keep on asking questions. Like one of the biggies for myself a while ago, I was observed, and my observer said, when you ask your client a powerful question, give them the opportunity to come up with a powerful answer. Don't let them get away. As I think, yeah, worrying less about asking a lot of questions and pausing, listening, and being curious about some of the things that are being said. There was one point which I caught on, where you said, is it A or is it B? I would say that, and I've done that myself frequently. And what is a better option there is saying, so what is becoming clearer to you in terms of options? Just leave it open, really, really open. Rather than, because otherwise we get into the danger of trying to solve somebody's problem, and we don't have to dig in and solve their problem for them, just help them think it through. But I think there was a lot of really good, there was the listening, there was the questions. You know, you were asked to go through a tool, which again complicates matters in terms of having to want to use the tool, but want to serve the client, and maybe the client's not serving the tool. I mean, that's the whole thing I've got on tools. We present you with a lot of tools, and right at the beginning as well, it was the question about, do you have any tools on helping people with boundaries? No, forget the tools. There's a couple of tools that you'll learn. They may be useful. You may be able to use them, but there's not a tool for everything, and we're not trying to fix people with tools. So in terms of things like boundaries, it's just making them aware, asking them questions. Those are the main tools. Listening is your main tool. Questions is your main tool. Helping the person to just have the opportunity to go through the thoughts. I think there was one. I mean, as I mentioned, of reading through Brené Brown and picking some things up there. I mean, sometimes you just ask, okay, what's most relevant to what your topic is, for what you brought in. I think referring back to the topic, how is that giving you some insight on how you want to move forward in what you've chosen to talk about, what we're working on at the moment? I think this is a general observation for everybody, is remember to refer back to your anchor point, which is, what is the focus?
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't pin down a focus, if you don't pin down a focus, you're not going to get anywhere. So having that and then referring back in to that is good to do. So a lot of strong points. And actually really good. Oh, there's another one which was really, really strong. Where you said, okay, we've got about 5 more minutes before we end. And so you were aware of the time that you were in, and that you will soon be coming to an end. And I've heard a lot of people just say, okay, well, thank you. And it just ends, rather than saying, okay, so as we're coming to an end, as we start wrapping up, and this is a core competency, and it's in the core competency, which is number 8, facilitates client change, client growth, sorry.
Client growth.
And one of them is partnering well with the client to end the session, or partnering with the client to end the session well. And that is partnering with the client to end the session well, giving we're coming into land, as we close, as we think about coming to an end, and helping the client to be mindful that we're wrapping up. I mean, that was good to have that reminder, rather than it just be really abrupt, oh, we finished. Goodbye, see you next week, you know. Like that caricature of when you see people in therapy in a film or something, and the therapist goes, oh, well, you know, time's up. Kind of thing. Yeah, we don't want to do that. Want to partner well with the clients to end the session. I think that was strong as well.
I think, Neil, you number 3 there, ask questions about the client, such as their way of thinking, values, needs, wants, and beliefs. Okay, that's also very key in a situation, like in every situation. So, you know, Joey, what things satisfy you about the daily mundane tasks you have to do? Because it's all about life satisfaction. People come for coaching because they're dissatisfied. So how do they find satisfaction in the things like you said, Joey? Joey said these are things they have to be done. Somebody has to do them. So, and most of the time, it just is me that has to do them. So how do you find how can you? This is out of her. This is something that's out of her control. So she can't control it. They have to be done. And then there are, like the ecosystem, there's things that disturb. So she sets a plan. That plan gets disturbed because it's something, again, that's out of her control. So it's all about, okay, you know, these are things, they have to be done. How can you get satisfaction out of them? It's all about life satisfaction. It's all about, like as Neil said, values and beliefs. She has to see that these things have got value. They're not just things that have to be done.
Yeah, can I tie that back into a very practical way, the core competencies? Okay, so everything has the reference into core competencies.
Yeah.
So when something comes up like Heather just said, you know, well, you know, these things have to be done, and generally I have to do them. So what would a coach do with something like that? There's an underlying assumption. There's something that the client has believed. There are values and there are ways of thinking. Okay. And that phrase is a clue that there's a whole bunch of things there which are under the surface. And so as a coach, all I would do is say, have to be done, and I have to do them. That's all I would say to the client, and see what that will evoke in them. I don't need to unravel it. I don't need to make any comments about it. I just give it to them back, what they've just said. And then if there's no way, go, say, what does that mean? And then repeat it back again. Have to be done, and I have to do it. What's underneath that? What's pinning that up? And then follow-up questions. Where are your values coming into play? What are you thinking here? What is the way of thinking? In what way does this way of thinking inhibit you moving forward to your goal? What new ways of thinking would you want to work on?
I really like that, because I was thinking about that. It felt to me that there's a thinking pattern underneath that probably needs to be looked at, if not changed. And I was not sure how to get there. That was really something that.
But it's like no pressure on the coach, because if you're working hard to think of questions, then you're not doing it properly. Something like you're just curious, you've heard something and you reflect it back and you said, you just said this. What's holding this up? What makes you think this way? And it's just curiosity. And then you're evoking awareness, because now the client has become aware that there's a way that they're thinking. And there's something that's holding that up. And if they say, I don't know, and then you just pause and just let them wriggle. And keep pausing and keep letting them wriggle. I had a client the other day said, oh, you do these pauses, and your silence, and it really, I have to think. Sometimes the silence, and Heather's mentioned this today, sometimes the silence is the key and the thing there. So yeah, no pressure. Don't think of asking, okay, what's the big question now that I need to ask? Because, the thought patterns and values. Reflect back what they've just said. And then you can ask, as I reflect back what you just said, what does that make you think? And very often the client will say, I didn't realize that I was thinking that way, and I don't have to think that way. I actually don't have to think that way. I just reflect back, I don't have to think that way. Okay. And allow the client to explore. But you've evoked awareness, and that awareness then later on, you ask, okay, so you started thinking in a different way. You started making comments about the way you're thinking. How is that going to work out now in what we talked about was your takeaway for the session today? How does a new way of thinking affect what you're going to take away? What is going to happen next? So evoking awareness is where we were there, but then we want to facilitate client change, which is then taking it further from the way of thinking and beyond the way of thinking into what that's going to actually work out as in terms of the client growth. So there's the connection there.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, there's one example even in the Bible that is really powerful evoking awareness, and it's between the relationship between Jethro and Moses. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, asked him a question just like what Neil was saying. What makes you think that? What makes you think that? Thinking underline. And Jethro asked Moses, what makes you think you have to be the judge over everything and everything? Because Moses is sitting all the time and he's overwhelmed. He's overwhelmed with the role that he has. And Jethro asks him, what makes you think you have to be the judge of everything? And it's that grace space to ask that difficult question, to challenge people's thinking, to dig deeper. So we will put up on the Google Classroom what are some of the mistakes coaches can make to undermine potentially powerful coaching conversations. You maybe already know one or two that you've made yourself or you've heard, but you can think about these things. I will put it up on the Google Classroom, read through it, and then you can just think about this in the next few days or so. Just pick up on some mistakes that you might have made or tempted to make, and then just to go onto the this video. Just to finish off, I'm just going to show this video clip to finish off, and then we'll call it the end of the session. So, are you wondering what coaching is? So this is a cute little video, but it's a very powerful video, very powerful.
Hey, can you help me? Hey, how can I help you? I need to cross over. You want to cross over the street? What have you tried so far? I tried to swim. I saw a fish doing that once. You tried being a fish? What else? I tried to jump high. I saw a bird flying over the street. You tried being a bird? What else? I saw a beaver once building a dike and thought that might work. You tried being a beaver? Would you mind getting into the street? What can you see? I don't know. Water? And my reflection. Excellent. What do you see in that reflection? Is that a fish? No, it isn't. Is it a bird? No. Is it a beaver? It's not a beaver. So what is it? It's a fox. So you're a fox trying to act like others. The others do easily what I want to do. So a fox can't do it. No, there must be a way. Can you see a solution here? Indeed I can. Then tell me. Be a fox, my friend. I am a fox. Then act like one. What would a fox do? I don't know. Foxes don't have a skill for crossing over streams. And what are your skills? Foxes are smart, observe, adapt. Great. So, now, show me how you'll play it. Wait, look! The stream is decreasing. So what? If I wait 2 hours... I made it! Oh, thank you! You are a fox. Well done, my friend.
Okay, so. Okay, so I think even relating that little video clip to Joey and Gerda, their coaching session, a lot of things came out. What are your skills? What are you? What are you thinking? Why are you thinking? Why are you thinking you're why do you want to be a fish when you're not a fish? What's so challenging? A lot of good pointers we can bring up from that little video clip. Did you enjoy that?
Mm.
What did you learn?
Be an owl.
Be an owl. Very good. Okay.
I didn't expect the end to be like that.
Mm-hmm. But you see the fox said, "What can I do? What's the solution?" Did the owl give the solution to him? Did the owl tell him? No. He made him find the own solution for himself. He said, "What? So what are your skills? What are your skills? Use your skills. What are they?" So very, very powerful and very simple, but yet simple but powerful. Okay, so thank you so much.